visiting all the points on the map and meeting hundreds of people along the way. I'm going to take you on a journey through 5 major areas of life in modern China. The political system, the economy, science and innovation, ecology, and people's livelihood. Let's discover a China on Earth. When I arrived in China 25 years ago, it wasn't that no one cared about these things in Shanghai in 1996. It just seemed like they had other things on their mind, like economic development. But these days, the picture is more complex. Lots of young people here, just as elsewhere in the world, are hyper-aware of the impact a damaged environment could have on their futures. But is it possible to transition from a rapidly growing, largely fossil fuel-powered economy to an environmentally sustainable and hopefully still growing economy of the future in the space of a few decades? Will China keep to its ecological commitments? UN Climate Change Conference in December 2015.
Thank you.
With the promise of a unified global response to climate change. 5 years later, China announced to the world that the country will reach peak carbon output no later than 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. If realized, this would be the biggest emission reduction amongst the Paris Agreement signatories, a massive achievement. That's partly because China is currently, by far, the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, with close to 1/3 of the global output of carbon dioxide originating here, and 60% of its energy still coming from that dirtiest of all energy sources, coal.
Even though nations have made commitments with the disruption in energy markets, almost all of the countries have fallen off of their performance that meets their commitments. In the Chinese case, they were beginning to try to constrain the burning of coal.
I've come to Tieling City, in northeast China's Liaoning province. Though it's bitterly cold outside, around -20 at the moment, it's as warm as toast inside. Heating for the city comes from the nearby supersized Qinghe power plant, which runs on coal. I was born in Yorkshire, in the north of England, home for centuries to some of Britain's biggest coal mines. Mining and burning coal are at the heart of cultures like Liaoning's and Yorkshire's. But coal is the worst of all fossil fuels, pumping sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and other polluting gases into the air. Things have to change. Many of us remember the winter haze in northern China in 2011. Back then, the north was supplying the lion's share of energy for both industry and domestic use. 10 years on, what's changed? Qinghe Power Generation was the first large thermal power station designed independently by China when it was established in 1970 with over 1 million kilowatts capacity. It was also the largest plant in Asia and the pride of the Northeast. Today, I've come to the home of Cao Xingda, a worker at the plant, the third generation of his family to work at Qinghe.
我在清河电厂工作了37年，89年左右、90年左右的时候，这时候大家开始向往那个都上火电厂去，企业的员工的这个收入还是比较可观的，就开始向往。
In Qinghe, families like Cao Xingda's have depended on the plant for employment and survival for generations. In recent recent years, though, with the coal price hike and the country's promotion of clean winter heating in the north, heavy polluting and high-energy consuming enterprises are facing increasing pressure to decarbonize.
你好。
Yang Hui, who heads the firm, is leading everybody through the critical moment.
企业经营目前可以说是非常艰辛嘛，非常困难，切实需要我们快速的，不但是转型，而且要快速转型。
那你们现在面对的最大的困难和挑战是什么呢？
清河是个老厂，人员多，负担重，后边有2000多双眼睛在看着我们这接班呢。
To accelerate the energy transformation and redevelopment of old industrial bases in the northeast, the Chinese government has started to increase support for new energy industries in the area. Qinghe Power Generation has also begun exploring photovoltaic energy with a business unit led by Cao Xida.
光伏现在是得到多少电量呢？
我们现在光伏现在厂区容量是5.2兆瓦，研发电量能达到712万度。现在目前那种分布式的光伏只能满足一部分的绿电比例吧。
In 2021, Qinghe Power Generation had an overall installed capacity of around 1,200 megawatts and an installed photovoltaic capacity of 5.2 megawatts. So the new energy proportion is still tiny, but it represents Qinghe Power Generation's first steps towards leaving traditional thermal power generation behind. The cost of reducing emissions poses a huge economic challenge for China.
现在火电厂确实我们已经连续亏损4年了，主要是受限于这个煤价嘛。新能源的电量，逐步它这个趋势越来越高。
So it is complex, but the commitment China has made is real. China is investing, I think, more than anyone in the world in alternative energy.
In 2021, total carbon emissions from Qinghe Power Generation were a little over 4 million tons, a decrease by 16%, more than 750,000 tons, on the previous year. It's progress, but China's traditional coal-fired power plants still have a long way to go.
要实现双碳目标，各类节能降碳技术和负碳技术其实是要起着至关重要的作用的，而我国在这些方面呢，仍然存在一些短板。
In the face of compulsory emission reduction targets, in 2021, measures such as planned power cuts and output reduction have been taken to reduce carbon emissions.
减碳靠牺牲产量、牺牲发展来，这样的话对中国这样一个处于发展中国家这个其实是不利的。我们在出台很多政策的时候，就是说你在推行这个政策过程中，你一定要想到它的反面、它的风险、它的弊病。
今后一段时间，我们的用能水平、用能需求仍将保持刚性增长。
China will remain around 5% of growth in the next decades and further. Carbon neutrality will transform China from an old economy to a complete new. If China can complete this process, China will move into the new horizon and can lead.
China's push towards what it calls ecological civilization isn't just transforming traditional industries. For many communities, it's changing their very way of life. In central China, a region of 100,000 people is undergoing one such change. Poyang Lake, in the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River, is China's largest freshwater lake and stretches across the 3 cities of Zhejiang, Nanchang, and Shangrao in Jiangxi province. It's home to many thousands of aquatic species as well as migratory birds, and it has fed local fishermen and their families for generations. the last century, though, excessive human activity, including damming tributary rivers, sand mining and overfishing, led to the Yangtze River Basin being reclassified as essentially fishless, and the ecosystem was on the brink of collapse.
当时的湖面太吓人了，到处都是船，捕捞都是偷捕的这种电网啊，捕捞的强度太高了。
Faced with an environmental and biodiversity catastrophe in and around the Yangtze River, the central government implemented a 10-year fishing ban on the 1st of January 2021. In the key area of Poyang Lake, over 100,000 fishermen from 300 fishing villages found that a way of life that had lasted millennia was suddenly brought to a close.
我们以前禁捕时期是在这个3到6月份左右哈，是保护鱼类的繁殖，效果有，但不是特别理想。那禁捕10年可以有2个世代的繁衍，鱼类种群能有一个相对很好的恢复和稳定。
应已进入鄱阳湖禁渔区。自2021年起，鄱阳湖实行禁渔10年。
A year after the ban was implemented, how is the lake doing? And perhaps just as important, how are the fishermen doing? I've come to Poyang Lake to find out.
这个捕鱼怎么一下子全国现在这个禁捕，一下子呢好像渔民就接受不了，这还得了？这以后的生存，我怎么生存得了呢？是不是？
Hello. There's a smell in the air which I think is burnt pearls. I think they use pearls to cut them up.
Some of the former fishermen have ventured into business. 36-year-old Cao Jingliang is one of them. His new company is part of the local shell processing industry.
那这个资金哪里来的呢？
资金有一部分贷款啊，还有一部分就是收那个仪器啊、网架，就收船呐，一部分国家补贴的资金。
自己的收入现在怎么样呢？
一年大概搞个20来万吧。
When a group of 100,000 people from one relatively small area is suddenly made redundant, the effects on the local community can be dramatic. Balancing the long-term benefits on the environment with short and medium-term effects on local people is a real test of government policy. Xiong Hongwei was a fisherman on Poyang, but has now joined the lake patrol team.
我们是捕鱼队，主要是配合渔政执法大队，帮他们收集、取证这些东西。有非法捕捞的了。
那当时是有可以选择是吧？可以做不同的工作吗？还是？
当时政府也通过了各种岗位培训，钳工、电工，使我们有技之长，是吧？
那你为什么选择了做这样的呢？
因为我也从小跟着爸妈是吧，在这湖里搞鱼，对这湖水都有浓厚的感情了。
我每一户渔民里头至少有1个人是能够就业的，这样的话就不会让他说全家没有人就业，让他的生活难以为继。
Despite the various forms of help on offer, in the years since the fishing ban and job switch, Xiong Hongwei's family has seen their income go down.
目前我们的工作收入就是每个月就是2800，肯定是不够的了。你像我是2个女儿读大学，这样就是收入少了点，这是唯一的缺陷。
有部分渔民他的生活水平是比以前是要下降的，这个是一个事实情况。如何让他们的收入保证在比较高的状态，是我们最大的一个挑战。
A year after the 10-year ban kicked in, Poyang Lake has been emptied of fishing boats, and in their absence, the government and the ex-fishermen we met say that fish and other aquatic species are returning.
Timeline has to be thought through in a scientific manner. What is the right trajectory? How do you keep people's lives comfortable and fine today and yet plan for the future? This is an ongoing work.
A 10-year fishing ban imposed on a local culture that has centered around fishing for centuries would be a test of resolve and competence for any government. We plan to be back in 2031 to see how it's gone and find out if local communities have survived, or perhaps even thrived.
중국 남부의 한 도시에 where they're going or why. Where they started in Sichuan-Banna.
World-class spectacle of wildlife conservation.
In early 2021, a herd of Asian elephants in Sichuan-Banna National Nature Reserve set off on a journey. They roamed free for 110 days and covered 1,000 kilometers, eating and drinking their way across rice paddies, jungle, and town centers. Along the way, a great deal of effort was made to monitor their progress and ensure their safe return. There could hardly be a better or more public example of China's recent efforts to protect its native wildlife, and it's not the only case. Sanya is located at the southernmost tip of China's Hainan Island. Sometimes called the Hawaii of the East, it's an ideal holiday destination. But I'm not here for a holiday. I'm here to visit the island's original inhabitant, the Hainan gibbon. Given that there are only 35 of them left in the world, I'm not sure I'm going to get to meet them face to face. But we'll see. In the early 1950s, Hainan Island was home to more than 2,000 Hainan gibbons. But since the late 1970s, the gibbon population has decreased precipitously, down to, at one point, less than 10. In 2002, the Hainan gibbon topped the global list of endangered primates.
海南长臂猿的话，遇到的问题啊，就是栖地丧失，没有适合的栖息地。尽管我们看到有很多树林，但这些树林大部分都是次生林。
To save the endangered Hainan gibbon, China set up a conservation and research center for the species in August 2020. Bawangling, located in the southwestern mountains of Hainan, is home to tropical rainforests and a huge variety of native species of flora and fauna. Most of the remaining Hainan gibbons live here.
前方急转弯，120米后向右前方。
Today I'm with Dr. Zhao Longhui, a researcher on tropical island ecology at Hainan Normal University. He's here to record the unique call of the gibbon.
它这个是无线传输的嘛，它是要录音之后，它是要远程传过去，不需要我们每次都要过来，然后换卡换电池这样的。你看到的方形的那个板子的话，就是那个太阳能电板嘛，它可以。
所以它一直放了，它不会没电。
对对。之前有因为我个人兴趣，我那个找过一段，我可以放给你们听一下。
行。
对对。
Fan Pengfei and his team from Sun Yat-sen University are also working to protect Hainan gibbons. As the first team to study the gibbons, Fan Pengfei and his colleagues learned about the population ecology, breeding habits, and habitat of Hainan gibbons through long-term observation and tracking.
经过这很长时间的这种观察，慢慢的和这个场面建立了这种相互信任的关系。 我们就可以在这个基础上收集更多的数据。
你看这里面全都是长臂猿的粪便，在野外采的那个样品，非常非常的珍贵，就是搞了好久，就只能采到一个。当你体验过，你就觉得啊，它掉下来吧，掉我身上，掉我嘴里，我都接受。
The protection of Hainan gibbons isn't only a matter of habitat protection and zoology, but also involves the surrounding human population. Liu Zhangli and Wang Li, who are from the Li ethnic group and live nearby, were selected by local government as forest rangers. Their work is focused on creating the best possible living environment for the gibbons.
库人这份工作呢，保护好森林资源，还有野生动植物，还有平常时呢也下村跟村民沟通，做一些宣传工作。
这是对我们的保护区的国家都保护动物的，谁都不敢上山。看山也不能看。
也要考虑到我们的后代，对不对？
In September 2021, China announced that the Hainan gibbon population had increased to 35, with 3 new gibbons born in 2020 and 2021 alone.
海南长臂猿能够从7到9只到今天的35只，最终达成了海南长臂猿在15年能够翻番的这么一个目标。
In October 2021, China announced the formal establishment of 5 national parks. Hainan Tropical Rainforest National Park is one of them.
National park protect not just for China, it's actually you know that it protect also for the Southeast Asia, right? It also help the Korea and the Japan and Mongolia area. We are all linking together.
After more than 40 years of rapid economic development, China has clearly recognized the need for an ecological and environmental transformation. Like transitioning from coal to green energy, like suspending a traditional industry to improve the ecology of a lake, and like saving an endangered species by protecting its habitat and educating the local population. For the world's largest developing country, this is going to take a lot to pull off. But in China, I do see a determination to make changes, and that seems like a good place to start.
This is our responsibility to the whole world, although challenge is daunting.
China is always a good learner.
I think that China can become an example for a new kind of ecological civilization, but it's got a long way to go.
Climate and environmental consequences of that, in order to limit them, that trade-off is a very difficult task for China, as it is for the US and for other countries.
China taking that stand, it was a very important step in the global community's effort to deal with this.